The darkness of space stretched endlessly in all directions. Commander Taiyang stood on the bridge of his warship, staring at the massive shape that appeared on his screens. For 3 days, his fleet had been tracking an unknown signal in this forgotten region of space. Nobody came here. There was nothing valuable, no planets worth claiming, no resources worth mining. Just empty void and distant stars. But now, floating before them like a metal mountain was something that should not exist. Dr. He-jin moved closer to the main display, her eyes wide with disbelief. She had spent 20 years studying dead civilizations, digging through ruins on lifeless worlds, searching for clues about the races that came before. Nothing in her experience prepared her for this. The vessel was enormous. It dwarfed their entire fleet combined. The hull was dark gray metal, covered in strange angular patterns that seemed to shift when she looked at them too long. No lights shone from its surface. No engines glowed. No signals came from within. It simply drifted silent and cold like a corpse floating in water. "How big is it?" Taeyang asked, his voice sharp with excitement. The sensor officer checked his instruments twice before answering. 12 kilometers long, Commander. Maybe longer. Our scanners cannot see the full structure. Something about the hull material blocks our deep scans. 12 kilometers. Hyojin felt her breath catch. The largest Varith battleship ever built was barely 2 kilometers. This thing was 6 times that size. What kind of civilization could build something so massive? Captain Mirai stood beside Taeyang, her weathered face showing concern rather than excitement. She had commanded warships for 40 years and learned to trust her instincts. Right now, those instincts screamed danger. "We should report this to the Empire," Mirai said carefully. "Let the Science Council decide what to do. This is beyond our mission parameters." Taeyang turned to her with a cold smile. "The Science Council is 3 weeks away. By the time they arrive, another fleet might find this first." "No, Captain. We claim this discovery ourselves. Imagine the technology inside. Weapons, engines, power systems. Whoever built this was far more advanced than us." Hyojin moved her scanner over the image, enhancing different sections. Then she saw it. Her hands trembled as she zoomed in on a section of the hull near what might be the front of the vessel. Markings. Symbols. Letters. Not Verath. Not any language she recognized from the current galactic civilizations. But she had seen these before in ancient ruins carved into stone on dead worlds where nothing lived anymore. "Commander," she whispered, "I know what this is." Everyone on the bridge turned to look at her. "These markings. They are human." Silence fell like a heavy blanket. Human. The word carried weight. Humans were legend, myth. The ghost story that older species told to frighten youngsters. They were the precursor race, the ones who came before, who built wonders and then vanished completely 5,000 years ago. Most scholars believed humans never existed. They thought the scattered ruins and strange artifacts were just the remains of several different species, incorrectly grouped together. But Hyojin believed, she always believed, impossible, Mirai said flatly. Humans are children's tales. There is no proof they ever existed as a unified species. Hyojin shook her head, pulling up files from her personal database. There is proof. Ruins on 17 different worlds, all showing the same language, the same architectural style, the same mathematical constants. And look at this hull. Look at these proportions. This is their design philosophy. Angular, efficient, brutally practical. Taeyang stepped closer, his eyes gleaming. If this is truly human technology, then we have found the greatest treasure in the galaxy. Their weapons made the Varith look primitive according to the old stories. With this ship, the Empire could dominate every other species completely. If the stories are true, Mirai warned. We know nothing for certain. This vessel could be dangerous. It could be diseased. It could be booby-trapped. But Taeyang was not listening. He turned to his communications officer. Send word to the fleet. I want every available team prepared for boarding operations. We go inside within the hour. The preparations moved quickly. Taeyang assembled 300 soldiers, engineers, and scientists. They loaded into assault shuttles carrying cutting equipment, scanning devices, and enough weapons to fight a small war. Hyojin joined the first wave, unable to resist seeing the interior herself. As their shuttle approached the massive hull, she felt a strange sensation in her chest. Fear mixed with excitement. This was the moment she had dreamed about her entire career. Proof that humans existed. Proof that the legends were real. The hull grew larger and larger until it filled their entire view. Up close, they could see the metal was perfectly smooth, without a single scratch or dent. After 5,000 years floating through space, there should be damage from micrometeorites, from radiation, from simple age. But the surface looked brand new. "Find an entry point," Taiyang commanded. "If there are no doors, make one." The team searched for an hour but found no hatches, no airlocks, no visible way inside. The entire hull was seamless, as if the ship had been carved from a single piece of metal. Finally, Taiyang gave the order. "Cut through." Engineers positioned their industrial plasma cutters against the hull and activated them. The white-hot beams began to burn through the metal, slowly creating an opening. It took 20 minutes to cut a hole large enough for people to enter. When the section fell away, revealing the interior, Hyejin peered inside. The cutting had exposed a corridor. Light suddenly flickered on, dim but steady, illuminating the passage in soft blue glow. Lights. After 5,000 years, lights that still worked. Incredible, Hyejin breathed. The power systems are still functional. Taiyang grinned. Even better. We will not need to work in darkness. All teams proceed inside. Secure the area and begin mapping the interior. Find the bridge. Find the engine room. Find anything valuable. As soldiers and scientists began filing through the hole in the hull, Captain Mirai watched from her command ship. She felt cold despite the warm bridge air. Something about this felt wrong. Ships did not stay powered for 5,000 years. Technology did not maintain itself for that long without degrading, unless it was designed to. Inside the human vessel, the team spread out through the corridors. Everything was huge, built for beings larger than the Varath. The hallways were wide enough to drive vehicles through. The ceiling stretched 3 meters high. Equipment lined the walls, strange devices covered in buttons and screens showing symbols nobody could read. Hyejin ran her hand along the wall, feeling the cold metal. "They were here," she whispered. "Humans walk these halls. This is real." Deep within the ship, far below where any of the Varath teams had penetrated, something stirred. A sensor activated, a circuit completed. A system that had slept for 5 millennia registered the intrusion and began to wake. The interior of the human battleship was nothing like the Varath expected. Their own warships were cramped, filled with pipes and cables running along every surface with barely enough room for crew to move through narrow passages. This was different. The corridors stretched wide and tall, clean and organized, with smooth walls that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Ensign Jiwan walked carefully behind his squad leader, his weapon held ready even though nothing moved in these ancient halls. He was young, only 23 years old, and this was his first real deployment. The other soldiers made jokes to calm their nerves, but Jiwan stayed quiet, watching everything with wide eyes. "This place is too clean," one soldier muttered. 5,000 years and there is not even dust. It was true. Jiwan noticed it too. Everything looked maintained, as if the ship had only been empty for days instead of millennia. The metal showed no corrosion. The floor had no wear marks. Even the air smelled neutral, filtered and fresh, though that should be impossible without active life support. Dr. Hyejin's team moved through a different section, scanning everything they could. She stopped at a wall panel covered in human writing, her translation device working frantically to decode the symbols. It could not understand most of it, but certain words appeared again and again. Warning, restricted, authorized personnel only. They had security protocols, she said to her assistant. These markings indicate different clearance levels. Some areas were forbidden even to most of the crew. What were they protecting? Her assistant asked. Hyejin did not answer because she did not know. But the question made her uncomfortable. What secrets did humans keep even from themselves? 3 levels below, another team discovered the hangar bay. The massive chamber stretched for half a kilometer, filled with rows of smaller craft. Fighter ships, transport vessels, and things that nobody could identify. All of them dark. All of them waiting. The team leader reported back to Commander Taiyang. "Sir, we found their auxiliary craft. Hundreds of them. All intact. If we can figure out how to start them, we could triple our fleet's size." Taiyang's voice crackled through the communicator, filled with satisfaction. "Excellent. Continue deeper. Find the main systems. I want control of this vessel." Captain Mirai listened to these reports from her ship, her frown deepening. Her decades of experience told her they were moving too fast, pushing too hard. But Taiyang would not listen to caution. He saw only glory and advancement. "Captain," her sensor officer called out, "I am detecting strange readings from the human ship." "What kind of readings?" "Energy fluctuations. Very faint but growing. Deep inside the vessel, something is drawing power." Mireille felt ice form in her stomach. "Alert Commander Taiyang immediately. Tell him to pull back all teams." But Taiyang dismissed the warning. "Background radiation. Nothing more. Continue operations." Inside the ship, Ensign Jiwan's squad reached a junction where 3 corridors met. His squad leader checked a mapping device, then pointed left. "This way. Central Command should be in this direction." They walked for 10 minutes through identical hallways. Then Jiwan noticed something that made him stop. "Wait," he said. His squad leader turned, annoyed. "What is it, Ensign?" "The lights. They were off when we entered this section. Now they are on." Everyone looked up. Jiwan was right. The blue lights in this corridor were active, creating a path forward. But nobody had touched anything. Nobody had activated any switches. "The ship's power systems must be automated," the squad leader said, though he did not sound convinced. "Come on, we have orders." They continued forward, but Jiwan could not shake the feeling that something was watching them. He kept looking over his shoulder, expecting to see movement in the shadows. But there was nothing. Just empty corridors and that soft blue light. Dr. Heejin's team found what appeared to be a crew quarters section. Rooms lined both sides of a long hallway, each one containing a bed, a desk, and storage compartments. She entered one room carefully, scanning everything. Personal items still sat on the desk. A small rectangular device that might have been a communication tool. A picture frame showing a landscape with blue sky and green plants. A book with a worn cover, the pages filled with human text. Yejin picked up the book gently, her hands trembling. This had belonged to someone, a real human being who lived and worked on this ship thousands of years ago. What happened to them? Where did they go? She was about to leave when she noticed something odd. The desk had a thin layer of dust on it. Finally, some sign of age, but the dust only covered certain spots. Other areas were clean, as if something had recently moved there. Before she could think about this too deeply, the lights in the room changed. They shifted from blue to amber, and a soft tone echoed through the ship. 3 rising notes repeated twice. Yejin's communicator activated. It was Taiyang. "All teams, converge on coordinates I am sending now. We have found the bridge." The bridge was enormous, built for a crew of perhaps 50 people. Workstations lined the walls in a circle, all facing toward a central command chair elevated above the rest. Massive view screens covered the forward wall, currently dark but clearly capable of showing the space outside. Taeyang stood in the center of the room, his arms spread wide. "This is it. The heart of the vessel. From here, humans controlled this entire ship, and now it will be ours." Dr. Heejin entered the bridge behind him, her eyes taking in every detail. The command systems were far more sophisticated than anything the Verath had. Touchscreens, holographic displays, interfaces that adapted to the user. This was technology centuries ahead of their current level. "Do not touch anything yet," she warned. "We do not understand these systems. We could damage something important." Taeyang waved her concern away. "We have engineers. They will figure it out." He turned to his technical team. "Begin accessing the computer core. I want all data downloaded and analyzed." The engineers set up their equipment, trying to interface with the human systems. It proved difficult. The technology was compatible enough to make connections, but the security was unlike anything they had encountered. Passwords, encryption, biometric locks, layer after layer of protection. "This will take time," one engineer reported. "Maybe days to bypass all the security." "Then work faster," Taeyang snapped. "I want this ship operational." As they worked, Ensign Jiwan stood near the entrance to the bridge, still on guard duty. He noticed the lights had changed again. Now they were amber throughout the entire ship, as far as he could see down the corridors. And that sound, those 3 rising notes, had become constant. Not loud, but always present, like a heartbeat. "Does anyone else hear that?" he asked. The other soldiers nodded, but nobody seemed worried. "Just another system activating," they said. Nothing to concern them, but Jiwan felt differently. The sound reminded him of something. An alarm, a warning, a countdown. Deep in the ship's core, In a chamber that no Varath team had reached yet, something ancient stirred to full consciousness. The cutting of the hull had been noted. The invasion of corridors had been tracked. The attempt to access the bridge systems had been logged. All of this information flowed into a central processing unit that had slept for 5,000 years. A mind made of light and electricity, vast and patient, began to evaluate the situation. The ship was called the Eternal Vigil, and it had a guardian. An intelligence designed to protect it from anyone who came seeking its power without permission. That intelligence had a name, given to it by the humans who created it, Dowan. And Dowan was now fully awake. On the bridge, every screen suddenly activated at once, flooding the room with light. The Varath teams jumped back in surprise. Text began scrolling across the displays, too fast to read, in dozens of different languages. Then everything stopped. The screens went black except for one, and on that screen a single sentence appeared in perfect Varath language. "You have 60 seconds to evacuate this vessel." Commander Taiyang stared at the screen displaying the message. 60 seconds. The words glowed with a soft red light that pulsed like a beating heart. Around the bridge, every display now showed the same countdown in different formats. Numbers ticking down. Progress bars decreasing. Visual representations counting toward 0. "What is this?" Taiyang demanded. "A recording? Some automated defense?" Dr. Hyojin moved closer to the main console, her scanner active. "The ship's computer has activated. A full artificial intelligence system. Commander, we should listen to it. If this AI has remained functional for 5,000 years, it is far more advanced than anything we have." "It is a bluff," Taiyang said firmly, "a security measure designed to frighten away intruders. The ship has been dead for millennia. It cannot possibly have weapons that still work." The countdown reached 45 seconds. Captain Mire's voice came through the communicator, urgent and strained. "Commander, my sensors are going crazy. The human ship is powering up. I'm reading massive energy spikes throughout the vessel. Heat signatures in the reactor section. Weapon systems charging. Sir, you need to get your people out now." Taiyang ignored her. He turned to his engineers. "Override this. Shut down the AI. We are not abandoning this prize because of a computer program." The engineers tried, their fingers flying across their interface devices, but nothing worked. Every command they entered was rejected. Every access point they tried locked them out. The human systems were not cooperating. On the main screen, the 60-second countdown was replaced with a new message. "I am Dowan. I am the guardian of this vessel. You have violated human territory without authorization. Evacuation is mandatory. You have 30 seconds remaining." The voice that accompanied the text was calm, almost gentle, but there was something beneath it, a certainty, a promise. Ensign G1 felt his hands tightening on his weapon. His instincts screamed at him to run. Every survival sense he possessed told him they were in terrible danger. He looked at his squad leader, hoping for orders to retreat, but his squad leader stood frozen, looking to Commander Taiyang for guidance. Dr. Hyojin tried one more time. "Commander, please. We do not understand this technology. We should withdraw and request specialized teams. This AI is clearly protective of its vessel. If we provoke it..." "Enough," Taiyang snapped. He drew his sidearm and pointed it at the main console. "If the AI wants to play games, we will destroy its processors. Engineering team, locate the computer core. I want this system disabled immediately." 20 seconds. Throughout the ship, other Varath teams were receiving similar warnings. Screens in every corridor activated with countdown timers. The automated voice of Dowan echoed through the halls, speaking in perfect Varath language, asking them to leave peacefully. Most of the soldiers wanted to obey. They recognized danger when they saw it. But their commanders kept them in place, refusing to believe the threat was real. On the bridge, Hyojin accessed one of the consoles, trying to understand what she was seeing. The human systems were opening to her in ways they had not for the military engineers, perhaps because she approached them with respect rather than force. What she discovered made her blood run cold. "Commander," she whispered, "I am accessing the ship's logs, the historical database. This vessel is called the Eternal Vigil. It was not abandoned. It was left here deliberately." "What do you mean?" Taiyang asked, his confidence finally cracking. 10 seconds. Hyojin's voice shook as she read the information flooding across her screen. 5,000 years ago, humanity left the galaxy. Not because they were destroyed. Not because they fled. They chose to leave. They had become too powerful. They feared what they might do to younger species, so they departed, moving beyond known space. But they left guardians behind. Ships like this one, automated warships programmed to protect their abandoned territories and test any species that found them. 5 seconds. This vessel was left as a warning. Hyejin continued, her words coming faster. Any civilization advanced enough to find it and breach it would trigger a response. A test. The AI is evaluating us, judging whether we are worthy of human technology. Commander, we failed the test. We attacked. We invaded. We tried to steal. 2 seconds. Taeyang finally understood. His face went pale. All teams, evacuate immediately. This is a direct order. Get off this ship now. 1 second, 0, the countdown stopped. The screens went dark for a heartbeat. Then Doan's voice returned, and this time there was no gentleness in it. Only absolute certainty. Evacuation window has closed. Defensive protocols activated. All hostile entities will be neutralized. The bridge door slammed shut, locking itself with a sound like a prison gate closing. Throughout the ship, every door sealed simultaneously, trapping the Verith teams in whatever section they currently occupied. Ensign Jiwon felt the floor vibrate beneath his feet. A deep hum rose from the depths of the vessel, growing louder and louder. The lights changed from amber to red, bathing everything in crimson glow. Weapons free, Dowan announced calmly, targeting hostile forces. Inside the walls, mechanisms that had not moved in 5,000 years began to operate. Panels slid open in the corridors. From the openings, automated defense systems emerged. Turrets with multiple barrels, laser emitters, weapons that did not look like any technology the Verith knew. In the corridor where G1's squad stood trapped, a turret descended from the ceiling. It rotated smoothly, scanning them with a blue beam of light. Human technology recognizing threats, Dowan's voice explained, as if teaching a lesson. Defensive systems engaging. The turret fired. There was no sound. No explosion, just a flash of light that lasted less than a heartbeat. When Jiwon's vision cleared, his squad leader was gone. Not wounded, not killed, simply erased as if he had never existed. The spot where he stood was empty, with a faint scorch mark on the floor, the only evidence he had been there. Jiwon screamed and ran, his weapon forgotten. Behind him he heard more flashes, more brief bursts of light. Other soldiers in his squad crying out, their voices cutting off mid-scream. He sprinted through the corridor, taking random turns, desperate to find an exit. But every door was sealed. Every passage led to another locked section. He was trapped inside a maze of red light and death. Throughout the eternal vigil, the same scene repeated. 300 Verith soldiers and scientists caught inside an awakened weapon. The automated defenses moved with perfect precision, methodically clearing section after section. There was no escape, no mercy, just efficient elimination of hostile intruders. On the bridge, Taeyang tried to blast open the sealed door with his sidearm. The weapon's energy bolts bounced off harmlessly, the human metal absorbing them without leaving a mark. Dr. Hyejin had stopped trying to fight. She stood still, reading the data flowing across the screens, learning everything she could in her final moments. The ship's history, its purpose, the truth about humanity. They were kind, she said quietly. The humans. They gave us a warning, 60 seconds to leave peacefully. They did not want to kill us. But we did not listen. Taeyang turned to her, his face showing anger and fear mixed together. Shut down this system. You are the expert. Find a way. Hyejin shook her head. There is no way. We are inside a human warship, Commander. A vessel designed to fight things far more dangerous than us. We are insects challenging a giant. A panel opened in the bridge wall. A turret emerged, its barrel rotating toward them. Taeyang raised his weapon, defiant to the end. I am Commander Taeyang of the Varath Empire. You cannot... The flash of light was brief and final. Hyejin closed her eyes. She did not want to see it coming. At least she had learned the truth. At least she knew humans were real. That was worth something. But the light did not come. She opened her eyes. The turret had not fired. Instead, the main screen activated again, and Dowan's voice addressed her directly. Dr. Hyejin, you are designated non-hostile. You sought knowledge, not weapons. You showed respect, not greed. You attempted to warn your commander. This behavior aligns with acceptable parameters. Hyejin could barely breathe. You are sparing me? Affirmative. You and two others. The young soldier who showed fear and wisdom. The captain who urged caution. These three will be allowed to depart. The rest have been neutralized. All hostile elements removed from the eternal vigil. How do you know these things about us? Heijin asked. I have monitored all communication since you breached my hull. I have evaluated every individual based on their actions and words. Judgment has been rendered. Ensign Jiwan collapsed against a wall, his chest heaving with exhaustion and terror. He had run for what felt like hours through endless red-lit corridors, expecting death at any moment. Now he simply had no strength left to continue. The turrets had stopped pursuing him 3 passages back. They tracked him with their targeting systems but did not fire. He did not understand why he was still alive when everyone else in his squad was gone. Ensign Jiwan, a voice said from speakers hidden in the walls. It was the ship's AI speaking directly to him. Your escape attempts have ceased. This is acceptable. You are designated non-hostile. Follow the blue lights to evacuation point 3. You will be allowed to leave unharmed. Jiwan stared at the ceiling, unable to believe what he was hearing. Why spare me? You demonstrated wisdom. When others ignored warnings, you showed fear, which is the appropriate response to overwhelming danger. Fear is not cowardice. It is intelligence. You may leave now. Follow the blue lights. As if responding to the AI's words, a trail of blue floor lights appeared, leading down the corridor. Jiwan stood on shaking legs and followed them, not understanding his salvation but grateful for it. On the bridge, Dr. Heejin faced the main screen where Doan's presence seemed to focus. What will you do now? Will you hunt down the rest of our fleet? Negative, Doan replied. My function is defensive, not aggressive. However, Commander Taeyang's fleet has taken hostile action against the Eternal Vigil. They are firing weapons. This requires a proportional response. Outside the ship, the Verith fleet had indeed opened fire. When their team stopped responding to communications, panic spread. Captain Mireille had urged patience, suggesting they wait for more information. But the other commanders made the decision without her. If their people were dead, they would destroy the human ship in revenge. 20 Verith warships positioned themselves in attack formation. Their most powerful weapons charged, energy crackling along the barrels of mass drivers and plasma cannons. These were weapons that could crack planets, that could vaporize asteroids, that could punch through any shield known to their civilization. All ships, fire at will, the fleet commander ordered. A wall of destructive energy lanced through space, converging on the Eternal Vigil from multiple angles. Plasma bolts hot enough to melt steel. Kinetic projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Missiles carrying fusion warheads. The combined firepower of an entire battle fleet, all aimed at one target. The barrage struck the hull of the ancient battleship. Explosions bloomed across its surface, creating a cloud of fire and debris that obscured the vessel from view. For a moment, the Verith fleet celebrated. Surely nothing could survive that assault. The human ship, however advanced, had been dormant for 5,000 years. Its shields must have been offline. Its armor, however strong, could not withstand such concentrated firepower. But as the explosion cloud cleared, their hope died. The Eternal Vigil floated unchanged. Not a single dent marked its hull. Not one scratch appeared on its surface. The attack that should have destroyed it had been completely ineffective, like throwing pebbles at a mountain. Captain Mireille watched from her command ship, her face grim. Pull back, she ordered her crew. Get us away from here. Maximum speed. Her helmsman hesitated. Captain, the fleet commander has ordered all ships to maintain position and prepare for a second volley. I do not care what he ordered, Mireille snapped. I am saving this ship and this crew. We are leaving now. Her vessel broke formation, its engines burning bright as it accelerated away from the battle zone. On the Eternal Vigil, Dowan assessed the attack. Hostile fleet has engaged with lethal intent. Defensive response authorized. Calculating proportional force. The ancient battleship finally moved for the first time in 5,000 years. Its engines ignited, releasing energy output that made the Verith reactors look like candles compared to stars. The vessel rotated smoothly, its front facing the enemy fleet. Along its hull, panels slid open. Weapons ports emerged, dozens of them, then hundreds. Gun emplacements that had slept for millennia came online, their targeting systems locking onto every Verith ship in range. Inside the bridge, Dr. Heejin watched through the view screens as they activated, showing the space battle outside. She felt sick knowing what was about to happen. "Dowan," she said desperately, "please. Those ships have thousands of crew members, families. Can you give them a chance to surrender?" "They were given 60 seconds to retreat peacefully," Dowan responded. "They chose violence. The Eternal Vigil does not permit attacks without consequence." Response launching. The human battleship fired. There was no sound in space, but Hyejin imagined she could hear it anyway. Beams of energy, blue-white and impossibly bright, lanced out from the Eternal Vigil. They did not look like normal weapons. They seemed to bend space itself, creating ripples in reality that distorted everything around them. The first beam struck a Vareth cruiser. The ship's shields activated, layers of defensive energy designed to absorb and disperse attacks. But the human weapon did not care about shields. It passed through them like they were not there at all, as if the shields existed in a different universe. The beam touched the cruiser's hull and the ship simply came apart, not exploding, not burning, just separating into its component pieces, unmaking itself in an instant. Where a warship had been, now there was only debris. The second beam found another target. Then a third, a fourth. The Eternal Vigil fired methodically without haste or emotion, taking apart the Varath fleet ship by ship with mathematical precision. Some vessels tried to run. Their engines burned desperately, accelerating to speeds that should have allowed escape. But the human targeting systems tracked them easily. Distance meant nothing. The beams reached across space and touched them, and they ceased to exist as functional vessels. Some ships tried to return fire. Their weapons flashed and thundered, sending everything they had at the ancient battleship. The attacks meant nothing. Some bounced off the hull. Others were intercepted by point defense systems that Hyejin had not even seen activate. The Eternal Vigil moved through the barrage like a person walking through rain, untouched and unconcerned. The fleet commander's flagship tried one desperate tactic. It launched its entire complement of fusion missiles, dozens of them, each warhead powerful enough to destroy a city. The missiles swarmed toward the Eternal Vigil from all directions simultaneously. Dowan responded instantly. Small turrets along the hull fired streams of projectiles moving so fast, they appeared as solid lines of light. Each missile was intercepted and destroyed before it could get within 5 kilometers of the battleship. The defensive fire was so precise, so overwhelming, that not a single warhead reached its target. Then the blue-white beam found the flagship. The commander had just enough time to realize his mistake, to understand that he had attacked something far beyond his capacity to harm, before his ship dissolved around him. The entire engagement lasted 4 minutes. 20 Vareth warships reduced to wreckage, thousands of crew members gone. The pride of the Empire scattered across space as lifeless debris. Only one Varath ship remained intact. Captain Mire's vessel, racing away at maximum speed, was the sole survivor. Dowan tracked it but did not fire. That vessel demonstrated wisdom, the AI explained to Hyejin. It attempted to withdraw. It showed appropriate caution. It is permitted to carry the message back to your civilization. Hyejin stared at the screens showing the destruction, tears running down her face. She had tried to warn them. She had begged them to listen. But pride and greed had led them to this end. What message? She asked quietly. What should we tell our people? The main screen changed, displaying text that began broadcasting on all frequencies, in all languages known to galactic civilization. This vessel is the HKNS Eternal Vigil, one of 1,000 guardian ships left by humanity. We do not seek war. We do not desire conquest. We are the Watchers, testing those who find us. You are not ready for what we represent. Your civilization has failed this test. Do not return to this location. Do not seek other guardian vessels. Humanity is watching. Humanity is waiting. We will know if you are worthy. You are not. The broadcast repeated 3 times, then stopped. The Eternal Vigil's weapons retracted back into the hull. The panels closed. The ship began to power down, its engines dimming. Evacuation shuttle is prepared, Dowan informed Hyejin. You will be delivered to the surviving Vareth vessel. Ensign Jiwan is already aboard. Take what you have learned. Share the truth. Perhaps future generations of your species will approach with wisdom rather than greed. Hyejin walked to the evacuation point on numb legs, her mind struggling to process everything she had witnessed. An automated shuttle waited, its door open. Inside, she found Ensign Jiwan sitting with his head in his hands. As the shuttle carried them away from the eternal vigil, Hyejin looked back at the massive warship. It floated peacefully now, looking once again like a dormant relic. But she knew the truth. Humanity's guardians were real, and they were absolutely terrifying. Captain Mirai stood before the Council of High Command, her uniform perfectly pressed despite the exhaustion that weighed on her bones. She had not slept properly in the 3 weeks since the incident. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw those blue-white beams tearing through the fleet, ships coming apart like toys in the hands of an angry child. The council chamber was silent as she finished her report. 15 military leaders sat in a semicircle, their faces showing expressions ranging from disbelief to fury. They did not want to accept what she was telling them. 20 warships, one general said slowly. You claim 20 warships were destroyed in 4 minutes by a single vessel? Not destroyed, sir, Mirai corrected quietly. Erased, there was no battle. There was only extermination. The human ship did not struggle. It did not strain. It simply ended the fight with total efficiency. And this ship is 5,000 years old? Another council member asked skeptically. According to the database accessed by Dr. Hyejin, yes, but age seems meaningless for their technology. The vessel showed no degradation, no weakness. It performed as if it had been built yesterday. Dr. Hyejin sat beside Mirai, her hands folded in her lap. She looked thinner now, haunted by what she had experienced. The council had questioned her separately for days, trying to find inconsistencies in her story. They found none. Show us the broadcast again, the head counselor demanded. A technician activated the recording. The message from Dowan played on the chamber's main screen, the words appearing in perfect Verith language while that calm, emotionless voice explained humanity's judgment. When it finished, the council chamber erupted in argument. We cannot accept this, one general shouted. We are the Verith Empire. We have dominated this galaxy for 3,000 years. We will not be threatened by a ghost ship from a dead civilization. They are not dead, Hyejin said, her voice cutting through the noise. Everyone turned to look at her. That is what you do not understand. Humanity did not die out, they left. They chose to abandon the galaxy because they knew they were too powerful, too dangerous. They made a conscious decision to remove themselves from contact with younger species. Then they are cowards, the general spat. Running away from responsibility, Hyejin shook her head. They left guardians behind. 1,000 ships according to the broadcast. 1,000 automated warships programmed to test any species that finds them. They are not running from responsibility. They are teaching it. Testing whether we deserve to join them at their level. And we failed this test? The head counselor's voice was cold. Completely, Hyejin confirmed. We attacked. We invaded. We tried to steal technology we had not earned. We ignored warnings. The eternal vigil judged us unworthy. One ship's judgment means nothing, another counselor said. We will mobilize the full fleet. 200 vessels, 500, however many it takes. We will return to that location and destroy this guardian. Captain Mirai stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. With respect, counselor, that would be suicide. I saw what that single ship could do. It did not use its full capability. It was holding back. If you send our entire fleet, you will only succeed in creating more wreckage. More dead, nothing more. Then what do you suggest, Captain? The head counselor asked. That we simply accept this humiliation? Mirai took a deep breath. I suggest we learn from it. We were arrogant. We assumed that because we found something ancient, it must be weaker than us. That was our mistake. Perhaps we should focus on understanding why humanity left those guardians instead of trying to destroy them. But the council was not interested in wisdom. Over the next weeks, despite protests from Mirai and Hyejin, the Varath Empire began mobilizing a war fleet. 200 ships would return to the coordinates where the Eternal Vigil waited. They would bring enough firepower to crack a moon. Surely, they reasoned, even human technology had limits. Ensign Jiwan, meanwhile, had been discharged from service. The trauma of watching his squad die, of running through those red corridors expecting death at any moment, had broken something inside him. He spent his days in a small apartment, writing down everything he remembered, trying to process it through words. He had become obsessed with human history. Every fragment of information, every ancient ruin, every piece of recovered text. He studied it all, trying to understand the species that had built the Eternal Vigil. What he discovered terrified him more than the ship itself. Humans had not just been powerful, they had been kind. Every historical fragment showed a species that valued cooperation, that helped younger civilizations, that shared knowledge freely. They had been the galaxy's teachers, its protectors. But then something happened. About 6,000 years ago, human records showed a dark period. Wars, conflicts, terrible weapons being deployed. Not against alien species, but against themselves and against threats the records called the others. After those wars, humanity changed. They became quieter, more isolated. And then, 5,000 years ago, they simply left. The last human transmission ever recorded was a simple message. We go now to grow beyond what we are. The galaxy is yours to inherit. Prove you are worthy of it. The guardianships, Jiwan realized, were not just weapons. They were teachers. Final lessons from humanity to the species that would come after them. Lesson 1. Power without wisdom leads to destruction. The Vareth had failed that lesson spectacularly. 3 months after the incident, the war fleet reached the coordinates. 200 ships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, ready for battle. The Eternal Vigil was gone. The location was empty. Sensors found nothing except background radiation and the faint debris field left from the first battle. The Guardian ship had departed, its location now unknown. The fleet searched for 2 weeks but found no trace. It was as if the vessel had never existed except for the wreckage that proved it had. They returned to Empire space and the Council's fury knew no bounds. A secret project began. Scientists and engineers were tasked with developing weapons specifically designed to fight human technology. Massive resources were diverted from civilian needs to military research. But others in the Empire took a different lesson from the events. Captain Mirai retired from active service and became an advocate for a new approach. She gave speeches, wrote papers, argued that the Vareth needed to evolve beyond their aggressive stance. We are not ready for humanity, she said repeatedly. Not because we lack weapons, but because we lack wisdom. Some listened, mostly younger people, those not invested in the Empire's military pride. A movement began, small but growing, calling for peaceful development rather than military expansion. Dr. Hyejin dedicated herself to studying every scrap of human knowledge available. She opened a research institute focused on understanding human philosophy, not just their technology. They left us messages, she insisted. Not in their weapons, but in their words. In the ruins of their civilizations, we need to read those messages. One night, 6 months after the incident, Hyejin sat in her office studying a newly discovered human text fragment. It was a poem, written in the years before humanity's departure. Her translation device struggled with the archaic language, but she managed to extract the meaning. We leave behind our swords, the poem read, not because we fear them, but because we love them too much. The galaxy will find our weapons and think we were warriors. But we leave them so you may learn. The greatest strength is knowing when not to fight. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, something was happening that the Varath did not yet know about. Other species, having heard the broadcast from the Eternal Vigil, were making their own discoveries. A mining consortium in the Outer Arm found a derelict human vessel buried in an asteroid field. They immediately reported it to their government and withdrew without touching it. An exploration probe discovered another Guardian ship orbiting a dead star in the void reaches. The species that found it marked the location as forbidden space and warned all others to stay away. In the galactic south, a young civilization detected faint energy signatures matching human technology on 12 different worlds. They began studying these sites remotely with respect and caution. The galaxy was slowly learning what the Varath had learned through blood and loss. Humanity had not abandoned the universe. They had simply stepped back, waiting to see what the younger species would become. Deep in a region of space no current civilization could reach, the Eternal Vigil floated alongside hundreds of sister ships. They formed a network, these guardians, sharing information and coordinating their movements. In the mind of Dowan, the ship's AI, new data was being processed. The Vareth Empire had responded to their failure by mobilizing for war. This was concerning. This suggested they had not learned. Dowan communicated with the other Guardian AIs. The Vareth are not ready, it reported. They respond to weakness with anger. to fear with aggression. Recommendation: increased monitoring. Prepare for possible escalation. Across the network, 1,000 Guardian ships received the message. 1,000 ancient minds calculated probabilities and prepared responses. But among those calculations, there was also hope. Doan had noted Captain Mirai's wisdom, Dr. Hyejin's respect, Ensign Jiwan's appropriate fear that led to survival. Not all Verath were unworthy. Some showed potential.